Are Amish women allowed to wear thongs or regular panties? Let me start by saying this the honest way I always do. I can't speak for every Amish community because Amish life isn't one size fits all. Each church district has its own rules and its own way of doing things. But I can tell you exactly what it was like where I grew up in a very strict Amish community. In my church, thongs were absolutely not allowed. And even the idea of panties, the way most English people mean, it was not how we did things. We didn't talk about underwear openly. We didn't joke about it. We didn't ask questions about it in front of men, and we sure didn't go shopping for it like it was no big deal. In my world, underwear was something you wore because you had to, not because you wanted to feel cute or comfortable or confident. It was private, almost secret, and honestly, a little shameful in the way Amish girls are taught to be modest about their bodies. We had our own underwear, and we called them bloomers. That's the word you'll hear a lot if you talk to ex-Amish women. Bloomers were plain and practical. They were meant to cover you properly under a dress and help you stay modest when you're doing chores, bending over, working in the garden, hanging laundry, climbing in and out of buggies, all of it, and everything about them matched the rest of Amish life. They were simple. They weren't for showing off. They weren't supposed to draw attention to your body. They were just another part of keeping yourself covered and proper. Now I want you to picture something, because people outside the Amish will hear bloomers and think it sounds kind of funny or old-fashioned, but in real life it wasn't funny to us. It was just normal. It was what your mom wore, what your older sisters wore, what everybody wore. And when you're raised like that, you don't sit around thinking, I wonder what other people wear, because you're not supposed to wonder too much. But of course I did wonder, because I was that kind of girl. I wasn't the kind that sat quiet and never questioned anything. I was the kind that noticed everything. I noticed how the English girls at stores carried themselves. I noticed the colors, the perfume, the music, the way they laughed loud and didn't seem scared of being seen. And I noticed the underwear packages too, because in a store in town, you can't miss them. Bright colors, shiny, plastic women smiling on the front like they're in on a secret you're not allowed to know. And if you're an Amish girl who's been taught your whole life that a woman's job is to be modest and pure and not tempt anyone, those packages can feel like a whole different world sitting right there on the shelf. So no, in my community, you were not allowed to wear thongs, and you weren't supposed to buy English panties either. But here's where I get real with you. I was a rebellious Amish teenager, and I did what rebellious teenagers do. I tested the rules, I pushed the line, I wanted to know what it felt like to have something that was mine and not chosen for me by the church or by tradition. So yes, I went to the store and bought myself some English panties, and yes, I bought thongs too. And I didn't do it because I was trying to be wild in some dramatic way. I did it because it felt like a small secret door to freedom. Something no one could see on the outside, something that didn't change my dress or my prayer covering or my face, but changed how I felt inside. It sounds silly if you've never lived it, but if you have lived under strict rules, you understand how powerful tiny choices can feel. Now, I'm going to tell you something that always makes people laugh, and I'm not even mad about it because honestly, it was funny. My cousins and I, we had this little secret thing going on. We would wear our fancy English panties sometimes on Sundays. Yes, to church. We'd be sitting there in our plain dresses and our coverings all proper and quiet and acting like good Amish girls. And underneath it, we had this little secret, like we were smuggling joy under our skirts. And after church, sometimes we'd sneak off and lock ourselves in the outhouse and peek at them like they were treasures. I know how that sounds. I know it sounds ridiculous, but when you grow up with almost nothing that feels personal, everything feels big. A pair of panties can feel like lipstick. It can feel like jewelry. It can feel like a piece of the world you're not allowed to touch. And we'd whisper and giggle and act brave for each other. And then we'd walk back out like nothing happened, because in the Amish, you learn early how to keep your face calm even when your heart is racing. Now let me explain the hush-hush part, because people always ask why it's so secret. The Amish don't usually talk about women's bodies in any open way, especially around men. There's a lot of modesty and a lot of embarrassment and a lot of we don't talk about that energy. Even between women, it can be awkward because you're raised to believe that your body is not something you celebrate. It's something you cover. It's something you keep quiet about. It's something you don't draw attention to. So underwear becomes this weird topic where everybody knows it exists, but nobody wants to say much about it. Even laundry day had its own little rules of privacy. When we washed our bloomers, we didn't just hang them out all proud, like, yep, these are mine. We would hang them on the middle line, and then we would cover that line up with bigger things, sheets, big dresses, aprons, anything that would hide them from view. And it wasn't just strangers, it was also our own brothers. That's something people don't always understand. Amish families can be big, and houses can be busy, and laundry is everywhere. And still, there are these invisible boundaries about what men should and shouldn't see. So we'd hide our underwear like it was something shameful. And looking back, I think that's what affected me most because it teaches you to feel embarrassed about normal things. And then I stepped into the English world and saw that women could buy underwear that actually fit their bodies and felt comfortable and didn't make them feel like they had to apologize for existing. And I remember the first time I wore a pair of English panties that felt soft and normal. And I thought, why did I spend my whole life feeling weird about this? I was happy. I really was. It wasn't only about being rebellious, it was about comfort and feeling like a regular girl. Now, before anyone twists my words, I'm not saying Amish bloomers are bad or that Amish women are miserable. Some Amish women are perfectly content with the rules they live by and they don't want anything else. But for me, those rules felt heavy. And underwear was one of those small places where that heaviness showed up. Because it's not really about underwear, is it? It's about control. It's about how much choice a young woman is allowed to have. It's about whether you're taught that your body belongs to you or whether you're taught that your body is something you manage carefully so you don't cause anyone else to stumble. And once you see that, you start to understand why something as simple as a thong could be considered a big deal. In my memoir, I actually talk about this in more detail, what Amish underwear was like, what we called it, how we handled laundry, how it felt emotionally, and then how it felt when I finally tried English underwear and realized I could make choices for myself. If you're curious and you want the full story, you can click the link in my bio and grab a copy. And if you're still here with me, I'll leave you with this. If you're watching from the outside and you're shocked or you're laughing or you're thinking, this can't be real, just remember, Amish life is made of 1,000 tiny rules, and when you're born into it, you don't notice the rules until you start wanting to breathe a little deeper. For me, a pair of English panties wasn't just underwear. It was proof that I could have something private, something soft, something mine, and that was the beginning of me realizing I wanted more than a life where everything had to be hidden on the middle clothesline under a sheet. If you want more stories like this, tell me in the comments what you're curious about because I've got plenty to share, and I'll tell it to you straight the way I lived it,